I have to say, it was good to be in a space with people who were just as mad as I was. In the space of less than 24 hours, our partners in the reproductive justice movement were able to gather in Foley Square so that we could express our outrage, our pain, and our disappointment. 5,000 of us there were on Tuesday, and we needed to be together. And the rally was at 5 p.m., excuse me. I left a little bit after my part. I offered an invocation with Rabbi Stephanie Colin from Congregation Beth Elohim in Brooklyn. But we were all there together because there were a lot of us who just wanted to make space for more, and in larger part, because I wanted to make it home in order to be home for bedtime. So I left, and I walked in the door, and my child ran to greet me, putting her arms around me, which is just the best feeling in the world. I thank God for Mother's Day as I celebrate that. But anyway, she put her arms around me. But see, I wasn't home after school like I normally am. So she was wondering, "Where were you, Mama?" she asked. And then it occurred to me, how do I explain this situation to a young child? I said, well, we got some rough news out of the Supreme Court. Again? Yes. What was it, Mama? I sighed. What to say? And this is what I said. Well, some people want to tell us what to do with our bodies, and they don't have our best interests at heart. With our bodies? She replied. Yes, my love, I answered. With our bodies. Well, why would they want to do that? She rightfully asked. And here was my best answer. Because they just don't want us to be free, I explained. Now that explanation wasn't unfamiliar to her because she's a black girl in America. We learned this early. But today, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about bodies. And I'm going to be very careful with my words because we're intergenerational here, and knowing also that we come at everything from different perspectives. And this worship includes children. So I'm not going to talk further about that injustice or all the latest injustices, not today. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about bodies. And as I do, I want to share with you a very specific goal that I have for you, for me, and for everyone else who would be willing to join us in this. I want you to learn to discover a safe place within you. You already have within you that I'm going to call the place that no one can touch. And I'm going to explain what that is in a minute, but before I do, I want to explain why I believe that this is helpful. Because there is, as I keep saying, there's just so much going on around us. And it could feel, and maybe we're probably right, that there is like an assault on our bodies. And when all this happens, of course we turn inwards, but I want to ask, when we do, what do we find there? See, your body is trained to protect you at all costs. And some of the ways that we protect ourselves come from places within us that we don't control. They're like, we got this, fight or flight. What they call the reptilian response. It comes from right here at the base of your head. But most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, unless our lives are in immediate danger right now at this point, when we are in fight or flight, that response within us is doing more harm than good. And this is when we wind up living our lives by accident. It's like, it's how we see what we know we should do. Like, there's so many things. Just think of all the things that you know you should be doing. Well, You knew you should come to church and you did, so that's right. But think about all these other things that you know you should be doing that you're not doing, right? And you know you want to do it, you know it is the best thing for you, you know it is the healthiest choice, but you can't figure out how to get started. And I am here to say to you that those behaviors are so normal, but your life, it doesn't have to be lived by accident. There is a way to be intentional in your choices and in your actions and to move to the place of health and safety that God intends for you and created you to live in. And one such way to get to that point of health and strength and wellness is to turn to the place that no one else can go, no one can reach, no one can see, but you and God. I'll tell you, I consider it now my mission to help all of you with this, everyone, because there is this crumbling and collapsing around us that we already see and will likely be sustained for quite some time. And unfortunately, we're going to pass some of that off to the next generation to deal with. However, I refuse to concede that. And what I want from you and what I want you and I to be able to do is to resist that crumbling inside, most especially, and to have a way to find joy and peace and comfort, even while things around us might be screaming at us to think something different, something that isn't in our best interests. So what do I mean? There are messages all around us telling us, fear, be afraid, stop in your tracks. You will feel better if you spend money with us, right? And they connect that spending to our fear and we listen to it. We can't help it. We fear. We stop ourselves from doing that one thing that we know we need to do, and instead we can't do it because we're so preoccupied with that reptilian stuff, with the things that we're afraid of. And, you know, somebody told me that recently, and I was like, no, you know what? I'm a really courageous person. I do hard things, which is true. The things I actually realize are before me, I tend to do with courage, right? The problem is that I'm only aware of about 10% of what's in my brain. The other 90% is in this state of panic almost constantly. That is what it means to be human. But we can resist this, and resist we must. People make a lot of money living off of our fears. It's very profitable for them. How many people, y'all live in New York City, right? How many people keep asking, you live in New York City? I can't even imagine. You must be terrified to leave the house, right? And I'm not. I just live here, right? We just do what we do. But the message to everybody who's not here is fear, be afraid, pay the police more. And this is why it's profitable, right? There is such a powerful, concerted effort to keep us exactly where we are, reptilian and afraid, to maintain our fear, to inspire us to act from our fear instead of out of our best interests. Well, what do I mean? I'm going to give you a really simple example that comes from yesterday. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I started to get hungry for lunch. Are you noticing the problem here? It was 4 p.m. I got up at 6:30 exactly, and at 4 p.m., I'm like, I need to eat some lunch. Why? It's not because I didn't remember to eat. It's because around noon, when I got hungry and my body said to me, let's eat, I was like, bet, let's do it. Okay, what do I want to eat? What would be the perfect lunch? What's going to make me feel absolutely amazing? So I started to throw some ideas out for myself. I started with caviar. was like, I would really like some caviar right now, and forgive me for the ethics around this, well, or don't. But anyway, this is what I wanted, right? So I'm like, I would like some caviar. It always makes me feel special to eat caviar, and it's my Mother's Day weekend, so I deserve some caviar, right? But as it turns out, I didn't have any caviar in the fridge. So the next thought was, okay, let me think about my body. What do you need, body? You want some iron. I'm anemic, so let's have some steak. I was like, I would really like a steak. I'll even get up and cook it. I didn't have a steak in my freezer or my fridge. So how am I gonna eat some steak, right? And because I had envisioned this perfect lunch of either caviar or steak, I was so frustrated with the situation that I just didn't eat anything. And has anyone ever done that? Yeah, so you set up like the perfect meal in your head, but you can't have it, right? So now I'm laughing at myself because this is absurd. At 4 p.m. I'm starving, right? Stomach is like, I told you 4 hours ago, what were you doing? And you know, I've been learning these new skills, so I said, okay, I did not act out of my own best interest. What was this about? What am I doing? And let me tell you how I realized what a reptile I was in that moment. I started with the thought, what should I eat? The next thing I did was think about something. I set up some impossible conditions to eat it, right? I wanted perfection. And if I couldn't have perfection, then I wasn't going to eat. What's that about? So I asked myself, well, what's that? And this is a helpful skill. I hope you'll do it too. What is this, Kaji? And then I realized I needed the perfect meal because I was afraid to waste calories on something that wasn't perfect. Well, what's that about, Kaji? Well, if I waste calories, then I'm gonna lose weight, and gain weight, and if I waste calories and gain weight, I'm not gonna be able to fit my clothes, and if I can't fit my clothes, I'm gonna look terrible when I'm on TV at church, and then the people won't love me. This is what our reptilian brain does. It's not logical, it's a big fat lie, but it still does it, right? I'm gonna give you another example, it's a little later. Okay, so do you ever think, okay, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna have a moment with, you know, my favorite show. I'm gonna watch, it's gonna be a great moment, it's my favorite show. There's some new movies out on Netflix. I'm gonna watch it. You get everything prepared. You get your snacks, you get your drinks, you have it all sitting right by you. You got your warm, comfy throw and you sit down and you're just ready to watch the show, but the remote is all the way over there. And if you're like me, I'm gonna cry because this is really true. I will sit there because I will have my phone and I'll be like looking up remote app for iPhone. Right? This is absurd. Why would I do this? I could just get up. But here in my warm, cozy, perfect space, I don't want to break that. And here's the thing. This is so normal. I was thinking, you know, I'm hard on myself, so I would say, oh, you're just being lazy, Kaji. Get up and get the remote. But then I said, why don't I want to do this? And then I start to realize it comes from a place of fear. Because reptilian brain says, you are comfy now and you got it just like you're supposed to. But if you move, you will never have this again and you will be miserable for the rest of your life. That is what is going on in our sweet little brains. And all these fears drive us to do things that are not in our interest. I would have paid $5 for that app. Probably not 10, but I would have paid 5. And now I'm going to give you another example from our text. Because all of these things are wired within us to believe that change is terrifying. We don't want to change. Getting up off the sofa would have been a change. Eating what I had instead of what I wanted would have been a change, and that's scary. And what could have been more of a dramatic change than the resurrection? We already know, and we've already discussed in church, the trauma of that resurrection, of the death experience of Jesus. These folks were crippled by their loss, and they were crippled by their disappointment, and that blinded them even to the presence of Jesus right in front of them, right? We've talked about that at the road to Emmaus. They're stuck in their reptilian response, and let me prove it to you. What is more fight or flight? What is more flight than hiding in the upper room? And here in this story, we are dealing with another scary emotion, which is doubt. And I can guarantee you that Thomas was not the only disciple there who had some doubts. He just happened to be the one who spoke up about it. Why? Because he was afraid. He didn't want to take that leap, that life-altering leap that would have brought him immeasurable joy and fulfillment by knowing that having believed Jesus and gotten this good news, that he would die and return in 3 days, like he said he would, but he couldn't get there. Why? It was in his interest. Why? And I want to say, what would happen if he were wrong? He was so scared. What if I'm wrong? What if all of this following I've done was for naught? He asked me to give up everything, and I gave up everything. And what if it wasn't true? What if Jesus doesn't come through? He couldn't handle that disappointment, so he set up an impossible condition. Jesus, by the way, was not into people touching him without his consent. He was really clear about his bodily autonomy. There are stories. And Thomas was saying, I won't believe this is true unless I can see the nails in his hands, the nail marks in his hands, and I can put my fingers in his side. Unless I have those impossible conditions, these perfect conditions, I'm not going to believe. And Thomas's impossible condition, the least likely scenario, given how Jesus wasn't into people touching him like that, was Thomas's way of avoiding the pain of failure, of being wrong, of following the wrong thing, of having to deal with the idea of God not having followed through. That was just too much. Of course, God did follow through. But what makes me think this? The text doesn't spell it out, but I will. Because I'm confident that the wiring that I've described of us is the same wiring that the disciples and Thomas would have had. That hasn't changed. We've had this since the woolly mammoths in the caves. We live by our fears because we're wired to believe that that's the best way to protect ourselves. And let me be really clear. I am not setting Thomas up as some sort of narrative foil. I'm not using him as an example of what not to be or how not to be. What I'm doing is drawing a clear distinction between that which is so human and God. Thomas thought that by setting up something so clearly impossible that he could outmaneuver his fears. But that which is impossible in our imaginations, folks, is very much possible for God. Jesus showed up for Thomas in precisely the way that Thomas needed him to do so in order to overcome his fears. You notice Thomas didn't even ask him, and he showed up that way anyway. We talk so much about living in faith as if it's the opposite of fear. But no, I think that faith is the companion of fear. I think that faith is God's act of grace to acknowledge and to help us to move past our fears, not to pretend they're not there, but to say they're here, but we don't have to live by them, so that when we do that, we have a way of living more closely aligned with God's promises and priorities, which have nothing to do with our fears. Living as God intends us is very much in our best interests. Of course it is. And why do so many of us struggle to pull that off? Because everything in here, in this magnificent, complex brain of ours, tells us that change is terrifying, and that reflects change. To us, the familiar, we're like a pig in, slop. We just roll in it, even though we know it's slop. And we'd rather roll in slop because it's familiar than be cleansed by God's holy waters sometimes. But let me tell you about God. Because rather than being frustrated with us over this, just like Jesus wasn't frustrated with Thomas, rather than saying, you know what, forget you. The others seem to get it. I already told you what was happening. Why didn't you just believe? Jesus wasn't like that. And God's not like that. God knows how to meet us right there in our fears and then to carry us through them. But you might be saying, but Pastor, if Jesus showed up right here and gave me his side to touch, I'd be fine. I wouldn't be in that fear. Thomas had it good. But you know what? So do we. And here's my point. And I think it's an important point. Because if you can believe this, if you can practice it, if you can build up the muscle, you will always have access to a place inside of you where you can meet God, be touched by God, be healed by God, be changed by God. You've got it. You all have it. It is your birthright. Everyone whom God has made, all of us in creation, we have this ability. Yeah, we're going to fear. It's part of what it means to be us. And as I mentioned, our fears are compounded by the machinations of fear that want to keep us under control. And we have all that messaging around us. But when it comes at you from all sides and you don't know what to do, I want you to go to that place within you that we explored earlier that no one but God can touch. It will be, and it has been, the source of every good thing, every good change in your life. It's the place in you where God is always just waiting for a visit. It's that place in you that no one can touch. And we went there earlier. It's that column of light that glows within you each time you take a breath. And then it just gets brighter and brighter. It connects you to the earth and pulls you up to the heavens like that taut string. It takes you and has you connected to the universe abroad. It is the physical dwelling place of the Holy Spirit, the Ruah, the life that God has breathed into you since your first breath. It is your place to go and to let the light in. It's yours and uniquely yours. And no one, no matter what, can take it from you. But what I'm going to say, we go to this place, the dwelling place of the Most High within us, way too infrequently. And when we do go there, maybe we don't allow ourselves to stay long enough, but we can. We can change that. And even when some of our fears do come true, we have to go back there. This is how, no matter what happens, we will survive and thrive, no matter what. And that is the walk of faith. Faith is about incorporating the divine into our realm of being, to come closer and closer to God. And because God is so infinitely good, a dwelling place of the divine is actually right here within you. You're not the only dwelling place, but you are one. So here's what I'm going to do for the foreseeable future. We here are going to offer you a place to practice that, to build that muscle, to build those skills and habits so that no matter what's happening, you can feel that warmth and glow and let the light in. This practice will build within you a muscle of resilience and faith that is so powerful, a strength that is so powerful that nothing will ever be able to shake you, because you are going to keep letting that light in. Because with God, that which seems absolutely impossible ain't but a thing. With God's breath upon you, there is no stronger wind. And as the scripture says, they're gonna come at you from one direction, but they will flee from seven, because God, who began a good work in you, will carry that work out to completion. My Lord and my God. Through your God-given faith, you have all you need, even to move mountains. Even to move mountains. Do you hear that? You are that mountain. So say this prayer with me, and you can repeat after me. Move this mountain. Move this mountain, oh God. I am ready to be a miracle. I am ready to be a miracle. Let's say that again. Move this mountain, oh God. I am ready to be a miracle. Now I want you to say it and put some feet into it. Move this mountain, oh God. I am ready to be a miracle. And maybe you could get up on your feet that are connected to the earth and feel lifted up into the heavens and say, move this mountain, oh God. I am ready to be a miracle. And then maybe you could stand even stronger and feel like, yes, thank you for the land on which I stand. Thank you for lifting me up, God, no matter what. Move this mountain, because I am ready to be a miracle. You are a miracle, church. You are living a miracle. And can you give God praise? You are that miracle. Moving out of this space, I can't wait to see some mountains on their way to glory. Amen. Amen.